What are you passionate about? Are you happy? Are you really happy? Do you trust your own instinct? What is your perception of God? Are you the best version of yourself? This is Conversations We Never Had, hosted by Wendy. And I'm so excited to be sitting down with Thami. How did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Mamelodi. I was born and raised in Mamelodi.
Yeah.
And I have my family tree is a lot.
Yes.
So my biological father has a couple of kids. My stepdad has got two children with my mom. I grew up with two fathers and one mother who all loved me unconditionally. I grew up as a kid who was very outspoken.
Yeah.
I mean, just even in my presentation, I'd like to believe that I'm outspoken. So
Yeah.
I grew up as a child who always had something to say to defend how I looked, how I came across, the decisions I made. I grew up as a child who asked my parents questions all the time. All the time. I asked the weirdest of questions. I mean, me firstborn,
Yeah.
and it was always important for me to get answers, and I didn't have someone else to ask those questions. I had my parents who were, figures that were slightly older than me.
Yeah.
I grew up as a naughty child. I was a naughty child. I was the kid you told not to touch the stove, and I touched the stove because I wanted to find out. I was curious. I was inquisitive.
And I would like to also find out about the 10-year-old Thami. Who was the 10-year-old Thami?
Jesus Christ. Do you think the 10-year-old Thami smelled roses on trees in pink shorts and a pink top? The 10-year-old was the curious one, carefree, conversations with cousins. 10-year-old Thami was already different in how he appeared. Like I tell people, I'm like, I've been gay since day 2, literally,
Day 2.
Day one.
Day one, you were not.
Day one, I was still coming out of my mom's stomach.
Dealing with that.
And there were too many people around me, and I was like trying to figure out things. I'm
Yeah.
like, and then day 2, a man came in. I was like, I like him.
Yeah.
So, I think 10-year-old Thami was always a different child. I think I was a beautiful project to my parents who watched me grow, but who also raised a rainbow child. 10-year-old Thami had cousins, friends, family who were getting exposed to this different person for the first time. There is that kind of person in the family.
Yeah.
So 10-year-old Thami always had attention, was given a lot of attention, and I think it was by default. It was because Thami was different. So the attention came from there.
Yeah.
The spotlight was always there
Yeah.
because I was different.
Yeah.
So 10-year-old Thami was a mystery.
And who's the Thami now?
The Thami I am discovering. I think with life, every single day, I always say to my friends, I'm like, you always have to check into who you are. I see a psychologist, I pray a lot, I have a lot of conversations with friends, but you always have to check in because I think God means something completely different to me today than what he meant yesterday. Sometimes I'm angry with God, sometimes I'm happy with him, sometimes I'm grateful, sometimes I'm in love. The Thami now is 33-year-old, discovering what the next level is, discovering what my faith is, tapping into my higher self, asking the relevant questions, because I think as you grow, there's a lot that we get thrown with. You know, in our teens, we don't really care much. And in our 20s, you know, we have so many options. There's so many different possibilities that exist in one, and you kind of have this pot full or this cocktail of different, you know, options in life. And when you get into your 30s and when you're in like 33 where I am, I think the passages of life require that you kind of solidify the person you want to be when you're 40. So who I am now is working on Thami when I'm 40.
You're preparing.
I am getting a sense of what matters and what doesn't.
What is your essence?
To be as and when it feels right to me. To always stay connected. So my being and my vibration comes from presence and energy and people and change.
Yeah.
And so my call to life here on earth is one that requires that I'm always present, is one that requires that I'm always making sure that I can sleep at night knowing that I've changed even my life or somebody else's life. I've said something that has moved someone and moved me, most importantly, because I believe it.
Do you find it easy to be present though? I mean, you touched on a little bit about it's in your calling.
Yeah.
You know, being present in the moment and making sure that people are happy.
I think we're humans, and it's always easy for us to. It's easy for me to tell you what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to tell you what is going to happen in 2 hours' time, in a day's time, but it's so hard for one to say what is happening right now. So it's a difficult one, and I always say to people who are spiritual, I'm like, they probably think it's the easiest thing to say I'm spiritual, I pray, and it's the hardest thing, because you always have to be present. You always, you know, there's some contradiction every other time. So I think it's a journey. Presence is a journey.
It's a journey.
It's a thing. You have to silence one thing to hear the other.
Oh. What do you value the most about yourself? I'm already learning a lot, and it's just the first segment.
What I value most about me is what's inside. That's my spirit and my soul, because it carries the rest of this. I live and I'm presented through this, but what exists, and the one thing I know I own, which is mine, is my spirit. I'm slowly learning to connect to people from a spiritual point of view, and to connect with the spirit rather than the body, because the bodies leave. They must go 6 feet under, and that's painful. So I want to always stay connected to the spirit, because at least I'll remember one day that through a conversation that I'm having with somebody else, that, oh my God, Wendy used to say this. It's like life after death, conversations with people who are long gone.
Yeah.
Like my grandmother used to say this to me, and when I hear somebody else saying it, I can immediately
remind you of connect.
I connect. I'm like, my grandmother is speaking to me through this person. I needed to have this conversation. I needed to hear this because she's speaking to me through this person, and that's why it's so important to always be present, listen. Stay connected, because there's a lot. Every single day, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
What don't people know about you that you actually show off?
Sure, that I'm the extreme opposite of anyone's expectation, and I will forever be.
What do people expect out of you?
what people expect is who they think I am.
Yeah.
Based on the information they have or what I've put out there. But what I've put out there is only like a percentage of who I am. And what I try and say to people all the time is, I think you're so confused, because I have people who see me drunk sometimes. I have people who are like, oh my God, I didn't know that you guys party so much. And I'm like, yeah, but that's because I have a life, and I have a full life, you know.
You only get to see a little bit of it.
I have a full life. I have me as a child to my mother. You never get to see that.
Ooh.
I have me as a brother to my siblings.
Yes.
You never get to see that. I have me as a grandson to my grandparents.
Yes.
You never get to see that. I have me washing my hair. You never get to see that, you know. You're only exposed to what I give you.
Yes.
And so your expectations are limited to
Based on what you know.
to what I've given you.
Yeah.
But I'm always going to be the extreme opposite of anyone's expectation.
What is your idea of God?
Everlasting love. I feel like he's, you know, when you break a window, and all you see are just clouds,
Yeah.
but there's just so much peace. My psychologist asked me the one time, and she said to me, I want you to have this room and your sacred room and your sacred space where it matters most who you are to yourself and who God is or whatever. What does the room look like? Does it have a chair? Does it have seats? Does it have cushions? Does it have painting?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
describe it.
Yes.
And what was interesting was that I ended up saying to her, she said, does it, and she was asking me a question around having like barriers, like walls around me. And I said to her, no, it's glass.
It's glass.
I can see everything. And that for me is God, like endless love, like opportunity. It's the sky, it's the moon, it's the sun, it's the rain, it's the flowers, it's the seasons, it's what I see grow next to me. It's the mountains, you know.
If you had the opportunity to ask God one question, what would it be?
I probably would ask him about the date of when I returned back home. So I know how much more time I have here to do what I need to do.
You're not afraid of death, hey?
No.
No?
No. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. I think people struggle, the ones that are left behind always struggle with death and with the passing of other people. But I think that people who die, it's like blinds open. It's a free world. And you know, people are always like, it's like the question around closure. People always want to find out if, they're like, I want closure, I need to see a psychologist. You'll never find closure. Why is it that the same pain of losing your mother, your son, your friend, your colleague, your teacher, whoever, hurts the same when you tap back into it, when you think about what had happened, or when you re-explain, you know, incidences of that day, or when it's somebody else's birthday. Like, I think about days when I'm like, it's my cousin's birthday, he would be 35. And I'm like, yeah.
And it takes you right back to...
So, you know, people talk about closure. I'm like, what is that? What is closure? Because I don't think that if we talk about closure, it means that you must close the chapter.
Yeah.
And it must never exist. And I find that to be quite impossible. You're a sum total of everything that's ever happened to you.
But then you don't believe that we never ever get to a point of understanding. I think that's what closure is.
I think we heal.
Yeah.
I think we heal. But the term used of closure is like, I'm ending this chapter, and this is what it feels like, or this is what it should be. I definitely think that we heal.
Okay.
I just don't like to use the term closure because it suggests that you need to go through a certain journey of I just of getting to a point where you don't cry anymore.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't hurt anymore. And we're human beings, we have feelings, we have hearts, we have memories, we have brains. We play it out again.
Yeah.
And it'll always, like, you can remember how it felt when you fell and you got the scar, and you can always tell the story of the scar that you had. So why
what
would
do
you
you
ask
mean
me
close?
to find closure? I think I can heal over it, but I'm a sum total of everything that's ever happened. So death, I don't fear. I think that the people who are left behind are the ones that always suffer the most, because you literally take your last breath, you're like, and out.
What do you think happens when we die?
I think our bodies die,
Yeah, but our
but our
spirits
spirits live on. It's in the same way that I feel like the soul will do whatever it needs to do to free itself. So if I wasn't happy here on earth, and my soul was needing to exit my body, it would, to free itself.
When do you feel the most godly?
When I have a conversation with God. So when I pray, or when I meditate, and I tap into my relationship with God, I think that's as closest to how godly I would ever feel. Because I'm having a thing there with Him.
What has been your biggest loss?
My greatest loss really in life has got to be the bodies that I encountered and the souls and the spirits that crossed path, and those bodies not being around anymore. You know, I learned one of my other big lessons this year has been around time, and I lost a friend of mine early in the year, and I realized that this person gave me so much of the time, and time is the most precious gift you can ever have in life, because when a person gives you a piece of their time, they give you a piece of themselves that they will never regain. You will never, ever, ever, ever regain that piece. So I'm sitting here giving you a piece of me, and you're giving me a piece of you. You will never, ever regain it. So it is time that I value so much, that I appreciate so much, and that has been the biggest lesson for me this year as well. Time.
How do you deal with loss?
You know, I think if you had asked me this question maybe 2 months ago or 3 months ago, because I've dealt with so many losses this year. Like, there was that very close friend of mine, Tlantla, early in the year, and then followed by that was a friend of mine's sister who I really loved. Followed by that was somebody I was extremely close with, was a grandmother to me, Winnie Mandela. And then, you know, just as I thought I'm really funeral fatigued and loss fatigued, then there was a Kumzi, you know. And it took Akumzi's death for me to say, I accept death for what it is, as is, with no questions.
So you don't really think about what happens when you die? Where do you go?
I always think about where one goes. But like I said, I feel like the spirit frees itself. And it does what it needs to do. Bodies go there, where you see them. I have a special thing that I do when people who are close to me die. I buy doves the same as their age, same number as their age, and when the body goes down into the soil, I release the doves into the spirit and into the world and let them be.
Do you find it easy though to let go?
It's not a choice.
Do you feel like you have to?
It's not a choice. If I had a choice, I would bring them back. It's not a choice.
What's your spiritual practice?
Prayer, which I do all the time. Earlier on, you spoke about the fact that people always went to God when they needed Him. And I've had so many of those moments where I went to God when I needed Him.
Yeah.
And then I realized that the same God that I have is the same one that says you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. So I got tired of kneeling down and praying when I needed something. I just took it to a conscious decision that I was going to move throughout my life always on my knees. So prayer is my spiritual practice. I'm always on my knees. I'm always in prayer. So it never stops. I have moments like what you asked me about feeling godly. I have moments when I tap in or when I'm in my space and I pray. I mean, I wake up at 4 a.m. all the time. And I use those moments to pray and to meditate. But I move throughout my life always on my knees, in prayer. Always.
What do you think is the purpose of human experience? Why are we all here?
To help one another. I think we're all on earth to help one another. To make sure that we have a great story that will teach someone else something. I mean, nothing is new. You know, you look at the life of many people who we all look up to, and there's a common thread, and the thread is always around love, hope, courage, patience, joy, all those things. And I think those are the essence of why we exist as human beings, is to spread the love, is to share stories or ensure that my story encourages you and it gives you a sense of hope, you know, and that for me is a thing. Somebody said with hope you can go all the way.
All the way.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm hopeful. I keep my faith, I'm hopeful. And that for me is the essence of why we are here on earth.
Sure, we've come right to the end of the interview. And I think I've gained so much. You've taken me through a journey today from you know, you walking in. You've already changed my life. You've already changed my mood. Because I was in an unstable, you know, state when you got here.
You know?
Yeah.
It did the same for me. And it helped me connect. So I've been at church. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's talk about the things we keep inside, deep in our souls, that make us who we are. All the pain, the things that bring us down, the darkness and the light that we carry. Conversations with